All right, ready to dive in? Today, we're looking at Giantserver properties. You sent over some articles on digital property, and honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing, owning a piece of the internet. So I definitely want to get into how it all works, maybe even if it's something, you listening should be thinking about.
It's a fascinating area, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about just how much of our lives are online these days. And that's where Giantserver comes in, right? They want to make investing in all this digital stuff accessible, even if you're, more used to traditional investments.
Yeah, because it seems like Giantserver is about more than just buying and selling websites. Like there's a bigger picture here. This Chocast, their founder, really caught my eye. He's talking about creating 500 tech millionaires by 2030. That's a bold goal. What's his story?
Well, Tekka Bell is the head of Plainhouse Corporation. They're already pretty big in the digital property management world. But with Giantserver, he's really focused on how can individuals build wealth through digital assets. It's about, democratizing access to opportunities, the kind that before might have only been for huge tech companies or big investors.
Ah, so that's where this democratizing wealth building idea comes from. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Okay, think of it this way. Giantserver is building a platform where you can invest in the digital properties that power, like all the online stuff we use daily, websites, data storage, even app hosting, stuff like that. They're basically taking these massive digital assets, breaking them down into smaller pieces, making them affordable, making them accessible for regular investors.
So instead of needing millions to buy a whole data center, I could potentially own a fraction of it through Giantserver.
Wow.
Interesting. But how does someone, like, say, you actually earn income from that?
A lot of these digital properties, they bring in money through things like e-commerce, hosting fees, cloud storage, software subscriptions, you name it. What Giantserver's platform does is it lets you invest in these revenue-generating assets, so you get a share of the profits, kind of like owning a slice of a physical business.
Okay, so help me out here. Let's say I buy a share of a digital property, maybe one that hosts a popular online game. As more people play the game, demand goes up, my investment potentially grows. Am I getting it?
Yeah, you got the right idea. And the revenue sharing, it depends on the specific property. Some might be based on user traffic, others on sales, and so on.
Makes sense, almost like owning a digital storefront on a busy street. More people on your street, more valuable your storefront becomes. But how does Giantserver make this whole thing manageable for someone who's, not a tech expert?
That's where their Digital Property Investment Club comes in. They call it the G Club. It's designed to guide and support investors of all levels.
Ah, so there's actual support, not just a platform to buy and sell. It's like they're actually giving you resources and education to navigate this whole new world. That's a big difference from, say, just throwing money at a random website domain.
Exactly. The G Club gives you access to exclusive research, AI insights to help you spot good opportunities, and they even have monthly meetings with industry experts. They're trying to build a whole community of informed investors.
Now, these AI insights, those sound really interesting. It's one thing to have access to data, but how is Giantserver actually using AI to benefit their investors?
Well, their AI algorithms are constantly analyzing tons of data.
Yeah.
Website traffic, user engagement, even broader market trends. And they use all that to identify digital properties with high growth potential, so they can alert investors to new opportunities.
So it's not just hoping for the best with a random website. Giantserver is using pretty sophisticated technology to help investors make smarter choices.
Okay, starting to see the appeal here. But who are they targeting with this? Is it just for, tech-savvy millennials? Or is there a wider appeal? That's what we'll get into next. Giantserver is attracting a surprisingly diverse group of investors, from people looking for passive income to businesses trying to take advantage of this digital growth.
All right, let's unpack that then. What makes Giantserver so appealing to such a mixed crowd? What's in it for them?
Welcome back to our deep dive on Giantserver. And you're right, the mix of people they're attracting is interesting. Seems like they've hit a sweet spot for individual investors and businesses wanting to get in on the digital action.
All right, let's break it down then. For someone like, say, you, what are the biggest advantages Giantserver is pushing? What makes them different from, I don't know, putting money in stocks or even buying rental properties?
Well, one of the big things is accessibility. Giantserver has really lowered the bar for people who might be a little, intimidated by traditional investing.
You mean like the fact that you can invest in smaller chunks? I saw on their website they talk about how their digital properties are often more affordable than, say, buying a rental property. That must be pretty appealing to someone just starting out.
Absolutely. It lets people with less capital get involved in a market that used to feel, well, kind of exclusive. It really goes back to Sicobella's whole vision of democratizing wealth building.
So it's not just about the initial investment being lower, but also about making the whole process less scary, right? It seems like Giantserver does that by offering guidance through their G Club and by using technology to simplify things, like those AI-powered insights you mentioned. How do those actually help someone make smarter investment decisions?
Instead of just relying on gut feeling or, basic market research, Giantserver's AI is constantly crunching numbers, looking for trends that we might miss.
So it's like having a whole team of analysts working for you, basically.
Yeah, kind of. They're analyzing things like website traffic, user engagement, even broader market trends, all to help identify those properties with high growth potential.
That's a game changer. So the AI isn't picking investments for you, but it's giving you that extra information to make a better choice. But wouldn't you still need some level of tech know-how to make sense of those insights?
Giantserver does a pretty good job of making the data user-friendly. They take those complex algorithms and turn them into actionable insights. Like, their platform might highlight a digital property that's suddenly seeing a surge in traffic from a specific region. That could indicate a growing market and, good investment opportunity.
Okay, so it's about giving you those aha moments, those extra layers of information to consider. I can see how that would be helpful, even for someone who isn't a tech wizard. What about the passive income part? A lot of people are drawn to the idea of making money while they sleep. How does Giantserver deliver on that?
Right, that's a big draw for a lot of investors. Giantserver lets you do just that by owning shares in properties that are already generating revenue. Like we discussed earlier, these might be e-commerce sites, cloud storage providers, popular gaming platforms, things like that. As those platforms earn money, you, as a shareholder, get a cut.
So it's not about buying a website and hoping it magically makes money. You're investing in something that's already generating income. Seems like a much smarter approach. But isn't there a risk that those platforms could, I don't know, lose popularity or become outdated? How does Giantserver handle that?
That's where their expertise and due diligence come in. They vet the properties very carefully, looking for businesses with proven track records, strong growth potential, a sustainable business model. They're not chasing fads, they're looking for long-term value.
So it's like having a team of experts doing all the research for you, weeding out the duds, and presenting you with the best opportunities. What about scalability, though? Can you start small and gradually increase your investment as you see returns? Is there that kind of flexibility?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Giantserver's platform is built to accommodate investors of all sizes. You can start with a small investment in one property and, gradually build your portfolio as you gain confidence.
That's great. So you don't need to be a high roller to get involved. You can dip your toes in, learn as you go, and scale up when you're ready. That flexibility must be a big selling point for a lot of people.
Exactly. It lets you tailor your investment strategy to your own goals and risk tolerance. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about businesses. You mentioned that Giantserver is attracting a pretty diverse range of businesses to its platform. What's driving that interest?
Well, it seems like Giantserver is becoming a one-stop shop for businesses that need, a solid digital presence. Instead of having to go to different providers for different services, they can find everything they need within Giantserver's ecosystem. They've got website hosting, data storage, application support, even tools to help businesses reach their target audience online.
It's a smart strategy. They're essentially creating a digital ecosystem where businesses can thrive.
Right, like a digital town square where businesses can set up shop, connect with customers, and tap into a wider network of resources and support. But what about the cost? Is it actually more affordable for businesses to use Giantserver's platform compared to building their own digital infrastructure?
That's one of the big selling points. Giantserver can often provide much more cost-effective solutions, especially for startups and smaller businesses that maybe don't have the resources for a big in-house IT team. By using Giantserver's shared infrastructure, they could avoid those huge upfront costs and the ongoing maintenance expenses of running their own systems.
It's like renting a fully furnished office versus building your own headquarters from scratch. You get everything you need without the massive overhead. But what about control? Don't businesses lose some control over their digital stuff when they're relying on a third party like Giantserver?
That's a valid concern, and Giantserver addresses that by offering a range of customizable solutions. So businesses can choose the level of control they need, from just, renting server space to having a dedicated team managing their whole digital infrastructure.
So it's a flexible model that adapts to each business's specific needs. Makes sense. But let's be honest, this whole concept of digital property still feels kind of abstract. Can you give me some real-world examples of what these investments actually look like?
Sure. Imagine investing in a property that hosts a virtual reality gaming platform. As that platform gains popularity, the value of your digital property could go up too.
It's like investing in a prime piece of real estate in a booming city. As the city grows, so does the value of your property. But instead of a physical location, it's a digital space, attracting users and making money. Pretty cool analogy. What other examples can you give me? What other types of businesses are doing well in Giantserver's ecosystem?
We're seeing everything from e-commerce companies using secure payment gateways to media platforms offering streaming services. Giantserver also hosts educational platforms delivering online courses, even healthcare providers managing patient data.
So it's not just about trendy tech companies, it's about providing the digital infrastructure for all kinds of industries that are relying more and more on online services.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole market so interesting. It's not limited to one sector or niche. It's about supporting the growth of the entire digital economy.
Okay, starting to get it now, feeling less abstract and more like a real way to participate in this digital world. But before I get too carried away, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Risks. Every investment has downsides, right? What potential pitfalls should we be aware of when it comes to digital property?
That's a crucial question, and it's one we'll tackle head on in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore those potential downsides, the regulations around digital property, and what could affect the value of these investments.
All right, time to talk about well, the less glamorous side of things, risks. We've talked about the potential upside of digital property, but, every smart investor knows there are always risks too.
Absolutely. No investment is risk-free, and digital property is no different. Got to go into this with open eyes, right?
So even if Giantserver is careful and picks properties with good potential, there's no guarantee those properties will actually go up in value. They could even, I don't know, lose value.
Yep. That's right. We have to remember this digital property market is still pretty young. It's affected by so many things. Technology changes fast, market demand can shift. You might even see new regulations pop up.
Okay, so it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You really need to stay informed, be ready for the ups and downs.
Exactly. Think of it more like being an early adopter. Big potential rewards, but you got to be adaptable. You got to stay on top of things.
One thing I keep seeing in these articles is the security aspect. Giantserver talks about their secured platform, but are there just inherent security risks with digital property itself?
Yeah, that's a really important point. Even with the strongest security measures on the platform, digital assets can still be vulnerable. Hacking, data breaches, system failures, all that stuff.
So even if Giantserver's platform is super secure, the actual digital properties could still get compromised. And that could affect their value and my investment.
Yeah, that's the reality, unfortunately. Security is an ongoing challenge, for sure. So it's crucial for investors to not just, look at the platform security, but really understand what makes those individual properties vulnerable and what safeguards they have in place.
Giantserver talks a lot about using AI for security. How does that actually work?
They use AI to spot and respond to threats in real time. Their algorithms analyze network traffic. They look for anything suspicious, and they can even take action automatically. It's like having a super vigilant security guard who never sleeps, someone who can analyze tons of data to find potential problems.
That sounds pretty impressive. But even with AI, it seems like there's still a level of risk investors have to accept.
What about regulations? Are there specific laws about digital property investments? How does that compare to, say, stocks or real estate?
Good question. And honestly, it's one of the big unknowns right now. The regulations around digital assets are still being figured out, and they're different everywhere you go. So there's a chance new regulations could come along that might affect the value of my investment, or even if it's legal.
Exactly. It's something investors need to consider. It's a bit of a wild west out there, Big opportunities, but also potential for the unexpected.
Sounds like investing in digital property takes a good amount of research and a tolerance for, well, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. Plus, you got to stay up to date on all the regulations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Not for the faint of heart, but for those who are willing to embrace the risks, the payoff could be huge.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about. Even with the risks, it's hard not to be intrigued by this whole digital property thing. Feels like a whole new world opening up with new ways to build wealth.
Yeah, that's exciting. We're seeing the very beginning of a digital revolution, and digital property is right at the forefront.
So where do we go from here? What should someone who's interested in digital property do after listening to this deep dive? What's the first step?
Educate yourself. Learn more about the different types of digital assets. How are their values determined? Where are they traded?
Giantserver's website seems like a good starting point. They've got a ton of info about digital property and their platform, and their G Club seems pretty valuable with all those resources and expert advice.
Definitely. Don't underestimate the power of learning from people who are already doing this.
And of course, like with any investment, talk to a financial advisor. They can help you figure out your risk tolerance, how it fits into your overall goals, and guide you through this whole new world.
Good advice. Digital property isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. It's about finding the right opportunities that match your situation and your long-term vision.
Well, we've covered a lot today. We looked at giant server properties, the potential benefits and risks of digital property, and all the exciting possibilities that come with this new frontier.
It's been a great deep dive. Like any new market, there's a lot to learn.
As always, we encourage you to keep researching, stay informed, and approach any investment with both caution and curiosity.
I think the most important thing to remember from all this is the digital world is changing fast. And those who are willing to embrace the change, to explore new possibilities, they'll be the ones shaping the future of the digital economy.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.